Welcome to the Special Report, your news and views program about geek gaming culture on the internet. Come up in the show today, we're going to get into all the details about what is going on with Dean Takahashi, the writer for VentureBeat, and his abysmal playthrough of the preview for Cuphead at Gamescom and the subsequent fallout from that. We're going to talk about the video itself, what people thought about it, and his response to it, which brings upon a lot more controversy. My name is JD Shadow, and the Special Report starts right now. The news about Dean Takahashi's playthrough of the upcoming Studio MDHR game Cuphead has sparked a sea of firestorm, and it doesn't stop there, because afterwards the subsequent fallout from the response that Dean had made upon knowing what it had caused set up a whole nother case of salt being poured onto open wounds. Let's talk about the entire story first. Let's talk about, before we go into the fallout and before we go into the whole response, let's get into what exactly we are talking about. First of all, Dean Takahashi is the writer at the gaming site VentureBeat and GamesBeat subsequently. He is also claimed to have written for the games industry for 20 plus years. He went to Gamescom 2017 to cover the event, and in doing so, he got to play the upcoming MDHR video game Cuphead. The footage of his playthrough is playing in the background in the video. The playthrough of it was subsequently awful. He did not understand the tutorial. He did not understand basic fundamentals of the game. With the most notable things that he did wrong was not understanding you could jump dash, and also that you could not jump on top of enemies a la Mario or Sonic the Hedgehog, even though this was a 2D platformer and it was pretty obvious that there was a gun that Cuphead had. And though one could excuse that perhaps there were a few issues where it was obvious that anyone could make that mistake one or two times, this is a video in which he tried time and time again to jump on somebody's head to no avail, or to damage being caused to the playable character. And even then, this wouldn't have been so bad. The title of the video was his shameful 20 minutes of gameplay of Cuphead. This would not have been so bad if the included article did not try to criticize the game or criticize the preview build on account of how badly he was playing, as if this was something that had to do with the controls or the tutorial not explaining things right, rather than how badly he was playing the game. According to the article, he said that, quote, "While my performance on the captured video below is quite shameful as I never finished the level, I think it shows quite well why Cuphead is fun and why making hard games that depend on skill is like a lost art." And later on in the article, and I want to have you keep this particular quote in mind when we go into my opinions of the whole thing, he said, quote, "I didn't realize for quite a long time that you don't accomplish anything by jumping on top of an enemy like in Mario games. Rather, you lose a life. It took me a reminder as well that you can change the type of shot." Now keep those quotes in mind, because after this whole thing went down, quite a few people took exception to how he described the game as opposed to what they saw on the video. It didn't take him just one or two tries in order to realize that you could not jump on an enemy. It took him several times of him getting damaged before he absolutely found out about the notion that you could not jump on an enemy. Also, some of the basic fundamentals of platforming games were particularly lost upon him, as you will see as you look through the video I am showing you on the window to the right. And of course, I will link all the sources in the description below this video so you can see exactly what we are talking about. And before we go any further with this, keep in mind that one particular person who called him out was not the only person who called him out, as Total Biscuit on the September 4th edition of the Co-Optional Podcast had also dedicated at least 30 minutes to this subject, with the phrase "be good at you job maybe" as the discussion topic displayed on the bottom of the video. There have been several YouTubers that had taken him to task, though they don't know Dean Takahashi's history as well as I might have, because I have followed the guy since 2008 on Twitter at the very least. He might not happen for very much longer if he ever sees this video. As I have learned, people on Twitter block you or unfollow you for pretty much anything anymore, really for no reason at all, and then never discuss with you what happened, or really don't care to discuss with you what happened. But it is the subsequential fallout from this and what he said afterwards that has really started getting under people's skin. And I'm going to mention to you now that it's going to be quoted ad verbatim, so if I say anything or any terms that might sound to you like I'm trying to throw gas onto an already scalding hot fire, this is not my fault. This is what he has said to the masses. The article in question is called "The Dean Beat, Our Cuphead Runneth Over," and it goes, quote, "Let's start with an understatement. You may have heard that I failed miserably in playing the demo of Cuphead, and the video I posted mocking myself has gone viral on the internet. My game crime? I was so bad at playing I was deemed unfit to be a games journalist. My Cuphead game video from Gamescom blew up, inspired rage, and spurred discussion about the death of game journalism across Reddit, YouTube, and Twitter. I unintentionally created my own tweet storm. If you are angry about this video, I apologize to you. It was a failure to communicate." He went on to say that he played the tutorial so ineptly, failing to read on-screen instructions to jump and dash simultaneously, and then went on failing to conquer a single level. And he said, "I said it was hard, and the fans saw my gameplay and decided I was poor judge at difficulty." And he also said that Mike Minutali of VentureBeat plays the 2D platformers, and he will likely do the formal review of the game when it comes out on September 29th, but he was in the Gamescom in Germany, and I, referring to Dean Takahashi, was. He said that the staff at VentureBeat thought it would be funny to put onto YouTube, that it more or less wasn't his idea to post the video in the first place, and that it was devoid of any context that possibly could have headed off that anger. And that if the context was there, it wouldn't have been touted as a serious review. Keep that in mind, because we're going to go into the opinion part of this in a little bit. But here is where things get awry, and here's where people have gotten even angrier about this whole situation, because he would have been great if he just stopped there. But then he goes on to a bit of a tirade, saying, quote, "But there are things I will not apologize for. Stand by for more on that if you're willing to read more than 140 characters." And I'm going to read the actual quote that he put in there for you. Keep in mind that these are his words, not mine. I did not choose to bring some of these issues up. He's the one that interjected them into the discussion. "Another games journalist, and some say whatever lord, saw my video. He clipped it to the 2.5 minutes of the most damning inept gameplay, and he posted it to his followers. He used me to condemn all game journalists, raising the smoldering issue around Gamergate and his focus on game journalism ethics. His post was political propaganda for the disenfranchised gamers, the sort who went from Gamergate to the alt-right and elected Donald Trump as president. Keep in mind that it's him bringing up these situations, not myself." He goes on to say, "Before he got to it, my video had maybe 10,000 views. Afterwards, the hard retractionaries, or whatever we would like to call them, believe this narrative fit into their views about game journalists just fine. They called for my head," and he keeps going on, saying I should be fired, I had brain damage, I was retarded, I should kill myself. A couple of comments were racist. I'm not trying to overplay my victimhood, but you get the picture. And then he kept going on about types of comments that he has gotten, with only one particular tweet had been referenced, and to my discredit, I cannot find that particular tweet anywhere in this person's timeline. However, going on, he said, "Perhaps they just needed more context. I get paid to play games, but that's a partial truth, and it causes so many assumptions to be made. I am foremost a business and technology writer who focuses on the game industry. I've written 1,882 stories in my 9.5 years at VentureBeat. That is 30 stories a week, but I do about a dozen or so game reviews per year. I've got to a lot of preview events where I play, but most of my job is writing about game and tech companies. I have 21 years experience of covering games and 26 years covering technology. My own view is that a lot more people should be paid to play games." And there is a lot more to what he said, but I am going to stop right there, as you can probably read the rest of it for your own enjoyment. I will link everything, as I said, in the description below this video. And like I said, those are quotes directly from him. I was not the one to bring some of these things into the discussion. He was the one who brought us into this discussion. And before I go any further, let me talk to you a little bit about why I believe that my talking about this might differ from some other people who's talking about it. The majority, if not all of the people who I have heard on YouTube talking about Dean Takahashi are coming from a place where they don't know who he is. They never heard of the guy, never heard of VentureBeat before. I have heard of VentureBeat. I have heard of Dean Takahashi for about since 2008. I had seen his article about the way that the Xbox 360 was manufactured and why the red ring of death was not able to be fixed by just some firmware updates. That they had to change exactly the way it was designed from the ground up. The hardware, where everything was in the box, and that sort of thing. I had followed him on Twitter for quite a while. That is why I know who he is. I know that I can talk about what he has done in a more experienced mindset. And the types of groups that he tried to label people as, he is not a fan of them in any stretch of imagination. And I could tell you that you probably shouldn't be a fan of the alt-right. You shouldn't be a fan of those people who shower people with racist comments or epithets or what have you. That is not the way to go. And I detest those people who piled on him with those types of comments. With that having been said, however, he has been known to bring these things up on a lot of the articles that he has posted. He has defended people who he probably shouldn't defend and had tried to say that it is all about these political and social issues when there was nothing brought up of this sort when people criticize some of the game developers and game journalists who have done these types of things in the past. He has been flying a little bit under the radar, as a lot of other games journalists have been criticized recently for being inept and for not covering games industry fairly. So yes, I do know that he has a history with bringing this stuff up and by labeling people with whatever hysteria he possibly can, because he knows that in this particular climate right now, a lot of people are going to believe him when he plays this hand, because he knows just the sheer mention of these terms are going to incite a whole lot of anger because of the sheer notion he set him. But here's my question, first of all, before we get into the bad gameplay. I know why he brought it up, because that's the go-to for many things right now in the games industry. If you want to get out of, hey, I didn't think I should be called out on it, you go into the whole notion that if you call me out, then you are a racist, or you're homophobic, or you're a misogynist, or any other hysteria, when clearly the majority of people never saw anything that even hinted that anybody was being anything other than critical of his playstyle, plus how he went about the article. Everything would have been fine if the video was playing as its own thing. It was titled right. It was exactly titled right. The shameful gameplay that he sucked at playing the game. That would have been okay. We've all done that. We've all posted things like, okay, we didn't play this game that well. It is funny to see somebody sucking in the game every once in a while. Total Biscuit's done that, saying, hey, I suck at StarCraft 2 at first. And anybody who says that they wouldn't ever see anybody post a gameplay video of somebody playing the game badly has not seen my Let's Play videos. They haven't seen me play a game because I'm not as good of a gamer as I would like to think I am. But here's the thing, he accompanied it with an article saying that it was difficult, that the tutorial was difficult, that he didn't understand the tutorial, that he didn't understand for God knows how long that you can jump on an enemy. How long did it take for him to actually figure that out, with the game giving you subtle hints of the contrary? If he's taking damage every single time that he's jumping on an enemy, when he's jumping on an enemy a million times, at some point people are going to take notice. People are going to notice that he's not getting the hint. It should only take him a couple of times to realize, hey, you're taking damage. You might want to do something about that. Now, He could have just said, hey, I thought that maybe I wasn't jumping on the enemy right or whatever, but he also had a gun, and he was told in a tutorial that, by the way, showed everything as clear as day. I don't know how he would have missed that. That, hey, maybe you should shoot at an enemy. Maybe you should jump on these platforms. Even people who have never played a 2D side-scrolling platform in their lives, or have never heard of what Mario is, and why would you not know who Mario is, for one thing? But even those people who have never knew that Mario existed would understand that basic mechanic. The game made it that clear. It was clear as day what you were supposed to do, and he could not grasp it. It was that bad. It was so painstakingly unwatchable that you wanted to just scream and, hey, read what it says. You wanted to like put your hands into the monitor and say, Dean, stop for a second and read what it says. How did he not see it? How did he not realize these things? What was he trying to accomplish by doing everything repeatedly, expecting different results? That is the absolute definition of insanity here. And instead of saying, you know what, maybe I was wrong, maybe I sucked at the game, and he did that, but it would have been great if he hadn't gone in to do this whole virtual singling, saying that, hey, I got all these things harassing me about my playstyle. Okay, fine, we detest that sort of thing, but cite what was going on. You cited one thing, and then you say, oh, this guy did it, so every single person who ever criticized me had to do the exact same thing. No, it does not mean that. Stop bringing these politics into your articles would have nothing to do about it. Yes, I agree, the alt-right is terrible, but that doesn't mean that everybody who criticizes you is a part of the alt-right, because what happens is that you broaden the definition so much that you just put everybody into this box, and then they have to shake off a label that they shouldn't have because they weren't even considering giving you a racial epithet charged tweet or a message or email or anything of the sort. You're saying that one person called you out, that one person, Emil Chong, who has had a bit of a history, pro and con himself, was calling you out. The day that it happened, the absolute day that it happened, Total Biscuit also called you out, and you have not said anything about him. Now, you said a SHIT lord. Was it Ian, were you calling that, or was it Total Biscuit? Here's the thing, he didn't specify which one did it. It was Ian, then I would say many people have their own opinions, and I'm not going to specify my thoughts on the matter about who he is and anything of the sort. I'm not even going to get into that. But if you're talking about Total Biscuit, then we have a bit of an issue because you did not have enough decency to say it to his face that you think he's the one that started it, because you know that he will respond. You know he's going to take issue with it, which, by the way, Total Biscuit had made quite a few tweets concerning this whole idea, saying that you would not review anything about cars if you didn't have a driver's license, or you wouldn't trust anybody reviewing cars who didn't have a driver's license. Which, by the way, he's saying that people thought it was a review. No one said it was a review. I think people had a simple understanding that it was not a review. It was a preview. It was something that was about the game that's yet to come out. And the problem that people had is that you gave a inaccurate interpretation of what the game is. It was difficult because you didn't know what you were doing, and that would be okay if you admitted to it. I am not for the dogpiling of him because he didn't know how to play the game effectively or how to play the game to a certain extent that he knew what he was doing. Of course, he admitted maybe he didn't know what he was doing, but he would have been very good if he just stopped there saying, hey, I wasn't that good at this game, and maybe I didn't understand the mechanics, maybe I failed to grasp simple understanding of what I was supposed to do, and yeah, I condemn people who gave me hate messages, but other people rightfully called me out on some things, which they did, and they have every right to do so. That would have been good. We were with you up to that point, but the second you bring into these things social matters, the second you bring that one word into it, you know what word I'm talking about. I probably shouldn't have said that back there at the beginning of this, But you bringing in that one thing and you call people of labels and you do that sort of thing, you bring in these political issues. You're bringing in a whole nother firestorm. You're opening up a whole nother can of worms. Hell, you're opening up Pandora's box and you love it. You're doing it because you know you will be able to get away with it if you just say, hey, all of these people are part of this group or that group, because then they have to, again, fight off a label, which it is nearly impossible to fight off right now because so many people just blindly believe anybody who says, hey, this person or that person is a racist or is part of the alt-right or part of this or part of that, without even going to that particular person or viewing this Twitter account or viewing anything of the sort from that person to see whether or not that is the case. And yes, there have been claims, there have been a lot of claims that he has also tried to use the DMCA system of YouTube to take down videos critical of his playing of this game. That in of itself is bad, and to put that and pair it with this and how the DMCA system on YouTube is so warped and people have systematically abused that system in order to censor anybody who dissents from their point of view, even in the slightest bit, even when they agree with them 99.9% of the time, and that 0.1% is the one time they have the issue with, and they're going to make a mountain out of a molehill about. That's pairing it with what you say here, Dean. This is telling people that you are just very sensitive to people who call you out on things, not just if they're shouting epithets or vitriol at you, which you should call those people out on. You should call people out who send you vitriol, but that doesn't mean every single person is doing it. It's part of the minority. Maybe you shouldn't give them attention. Maybe you shouldn't give them what they seek. Maybe you shouldn't give them what they ask for. They're wanting you to respond. That's what they want you to do. And you're not only doing it, you're doing it in order to give yourself attention. You're doing hand in hand here. You're helping each other out in that scenario. And you should not do that. And we've been telling you time and time again, do not give them attention. But it is your intention to give them attention. Because let's be quite honest, other than me, who knew about you before this whole thing went down, who gave you all this attention, who was giving you all this coverage before this all went down, before your playthrough of Cuphead, and before you even wrote any of these two articles? Who gave you this much attention? Obviously, now people were drawing attention to you, and obviously you're trying to make the most of it, but in the worst way possible, which makes people's ability to avoid these trolls who are not using them for their own purposes a lot harder, because now those trolls have power because you gave that to them. You're doing the opposite of what you're saying that you're trying to do. Yes, sunlight can be the best disinfectant, but darkness can also be a good deterrent. Don't give them the attention they seek, and you deprive them of oxygen. You deprive them of power. Don't ignore them, but don't give them the attention they seek. It's a fine line. Sometimes it's hard to balance out when you're giving them too much attention, but to give them attention in order to fulfill some self-fulfilling prophecy here is not only bad for you, but for those people who are not trying to get anything out of saying, hey, I don't want these guys drowning my internet space. They don't want to be targeted because you can't seem to find it within yourself in order to do your job correctly and to cover games in the fairest light possible. This is not a fair interpretation of Cuphead, period. There is nothing you can say in order to change that, except if you say, hey, I'm sorry, I wasn't that great at it and I didn't mean to misinterpret the game. I shouldn't have been the one to cover this game even though I was the only one there. We would have forgiven you if you had not done these two articles in addition to it. And you labeling people are just going to make it worse, because a lot of people are now aware of that kind of tactic, and it's not going to help, because the majority of people who called you out with a legitimate mindset and did not use vitriol, did not use hateful messages, did not give you nasty tweets or nasty messages. They said you weren't that great, you should not be doing that kind of thing if you are a game journalist who was there for 20 plus years. And stop doubling down and bringing us all into a box and thinking that we are the same as these hateful, racist, bigoted people that you got some of these messages from. No, you don't have to quit the industry. No, you don't have to quit games journalism, but have a understanding, a better understanding and a better respect when somebody criticizes you for your work, and don't try to take the easy way out when you you do get criticized and cover games a lot more fairly than you did with Cuphead. That is very simple. And if you do that, then maybe, just maybe, people will forgive you. I would hope that you take that in stride and you take that advice. And that will do it for this edition of the Special Report. Thanks again for watching. If you like what you see, please give a thumbs up and comment down below of what your thoughts are on this episode and of this story. I would love to hear from them. Thanks again for watching. My name is JD Shadow, and that just happened.